Get it to go out.
That sounds pretty good, but not good enough to go there. Yeah, almost.
Yeah. I just sent you.
Back.
Contract, the green, the place to the bridge, you got it, with black. There was a number change need to be done to it, because I can get it out, but I just think, what it people bring.
Okay.
Thank you. Nick, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Ready?
Got your dinner with you.
My dinner. Reverberation there. I'm going to call the August 20th meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. As y'all have probably noticed, I am not Mayor Taylor. I'm Commissioner Jim Tate. So I will be leading the meeting tonight while Mayor Taylor's off enjoying a little bit of needed respite. I got a nice photograph of him today, and he seems to be happy. He had a big old smile on his face. As you all know, I've led many meetings for Macon County, but I've never led one for the town of Highlands. So I'm a little bit nervous tonight, but I'm sure I'm not going to do everything the way Mayor Taylor does, but I promise to help keep us respectful and trying to get us through this as promptly as possible so we can take care of the business of the town of Highlands. With that being said, let's all rise. We'll observe a moment of silence, and I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, members of the board are reminded of their duty to avoid conflicts of interest during transaction of town business and are asked to disclose any known conflict of interest at this time. Everybody, hearts and minds clear? Good deal. All right. We'll open up the public comment period. We do have a public hearing tonight on a moratorium on data centers. So if anybody was going to address that particular topic, we will do so as we open that public hearing. But if there's anything else, we're all ears and love to hear. Y'all are making it easy on me. I'm not intimidating y'all, am I? All right. Any additions or changes to the agenda? I think there was one item. Josh?
You had a revision that was sent out. It'd be number 18. It's 8-3 R Lane proposed right-of-way request, Michael Mathis.
Any other items?
I make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's get approval of the July 16th regular meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Weller and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, reports. The mayor's not here. I don't have a report. Commissioners, anything else?
I have one thing. Just going to mention been indirectly working with both the chamber and Hotwire in order to facilitate the Wi-Fi, downtown Wi-Fi. And they are about 3/4 of the way through business approvals of hotspots at businesses in order to cover all of Main Street. and up the hill, basically B1. And just letting you know that's moving along, and hopefully we'll have some more solid work being done on it here by fall and winter.
So they'll get the approvals and then they can put in the back street infrastructure.
Well, what they're going to do is piggyback off of existing buildings that are customers and actually put in a separate hotspot in 20 businesses up and down that area in order to get all the coverage they need.
Yeah.
So they'll be open, free Wi-Fi, not just in the park, but also all the way down Main Street and in the B1 district. So
We've seen how important that can be. Mr. Manager?
The search for the finance director is underway. Had a couple of interviews today. Town hall will be closed on Monday, September 7th for the Labor Day holiday. And the Force Main project is finishing up. Probably finished today. I didn't get a chance to go back down there. They had some ground cover to put down in the ditch alongside 64, but that project actually went a whole lot better than we thought. So
It's
go
pretty
through that.
quick, actually,
it was.
compared to what we thought it was going to be.
I'll send some pictures of the pipe along 64 out to you and show you the condition.
Yeah.
So we needed to do it.
Yes.
And since between my office and where I live on Webmont, it's smack dab halfway between the two, the disruption was limited. They did a great job. It
That's good.
was very good.
And the other pipe on Oak Lane, Raoul, in that area, they replaced it, but actually it was not what we thought it was going to be. It wasn't anywhere close to where it was at on the condition as 64 was.
But still had the,
It's replaced now.
yeah.
We'll have to
sooner
worry
or
about
later
it in
we're
those
gonna-
areas that are high, where those air release valves are, and air release valves have been replaced as well.
Right.
And then those sections were paved back along Oak and Raoul and Palisade.
All minds clear? Good.
Excuse me?
All minds clear?
We'll say Dog Mountain, conduit is in. They're putting the boxes in for the fiber. The fiber will be going in pretty soon. And then some culverts have to be replaced, and then they'll be paving hopefully in September. Don't know the exact schedule, but we'll be informing the neighbors up there when that's going on. So hopefully to get that pavement completed in September, we got a little bit of a lull before leaf season, but it's moving right along. Obviously, skate will be, January, February before it gets completely installed and the project can be completed, but it's moving forward. That's all I had.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We'll take a motion to approve unless there's an item that somebody would like to pull out for further discussion.
Oh, I had one. Go
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I have to find mine.
I was going to make a motion to approve.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think it was maybe it was this or something else. The budget amendment that we had for the design of something. We had an extra $22,000. Or is that further down the list?
The Big Bear Pen
Yeah.
tank building.
Yeah.
So it was an enclosure that we need up on Big Bear Pen. And there was some quotes given. And then right at the end, I actually talked to the contractor about painting, what we need to add. And that was going to be an add-on, and some other things actually put it over what was budgeted. So that's why you got $8,000 in there for budget amendment.
Okay.
For that. And that's the house and equipment that's up there right now. It's just kind of a plastic box, and there needs to be something more substantial there now.
So it's where the other thing was before?
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks.
so it's down on our property, not somebody
Yes.
else's property.
Yes.
Okay, that was the only question I had.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Grubb,
Second.
second by Commissioner Patterson. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I want to open the public hearing for the moratorium on data centers.
Do you
We'll
need a
get-
motion?
We probably do.
I make a motion to
Okay,
open.
thank you.
Yep.
Motion by Commissioner Weller. Second by
Second.
Commissioner Patterson, all in favor. I'll open it again.
Aye.
All right, staff comments and recommendation. I think I'm gonna leave this to Nick.
Okay, thank you. I'll do a PowerPoint presentation on this. But Michael, it's saying sharing is not turned on, so can you allow me to share?
He's good.
Okay. Right. Let me start the presentation. Can you all see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So as you all know, this is an extremely hot topic across North Carolina right now. Um, Jurisdictions are all across North Carolina are struggling with how to keep up with this proliferation of land uses across North Carolina related to data centers and cryptocurrency mining operations and related facilities. It is a very hot topic of the bar, the municipal attorney bar. I just got back from the municipal attorneys North Carolina Municipal Attorneys Conference, summer conference, and this was a very hot topic, as was the at the county attorney conference. And so, needless to say, you all are not alone in trying to figure this out and maneuver this very tricky, thorny situation that kind of appeared to have come out of nowhere. Really, it's not been a slow build; it's kind of come suddenly. At the last meeting, I was asked to look into helping draft a development moratorium ordinance for data centers. And that's what I have done, and that's what we can talk about. But when I did that, I went and have done a lot of research about what other places are doing across North Carolina. In fact, some of them are my clients, or where I'm the town attorney, are also doing this too. So luckily, there is a very good resource right now called the North Carolina Data Center newsletter that basically is trying to keep up with everything that's going on across the state. And there's in fact there's an interactive dashboard that kind of keeps up with this. And what you can see is, you know, data centers are the fastest growing land use. There's no doubt about it. That is just something that is, not debatable. And a lot of jurisdictions are trying to figure out how can they regulate these uses, and whether they go forward with the projects just as is, whether they develop or whether they adopt a moratorium to pause while they look into this issue further, or there's been a handful that have just gone ahead and adopted regulations. So that's what you can see here. As of today, there's been 21 data center projects announced across the state. 38 jurisdictions, cities, and counties have adopted a moratorium, and 13 have just gone ahead and adopted regulations related to data centers. And what you can see is of the places that have adopted a moratorium, of the 38 that have adopted a moratorium, there's different lengths of time, but the overwhelming majority has been for 1 year. That seems to be the standard. You can see 68.4% of 38 jurisdictions have done the 1 year. There's been as little as, I believe it's 5 months, or 2 months has been little. I guess Mount Airy and others have done just a couple months, and then there's been some that are, uh, 2 years plus, and some that are. There's been some outright bans too, but we're not discussing that right now, and that's only been one or two that have done that. So that's kind of the trend in moratoriums on data centers across the state. And of the 13 that have adopted regulations, you can see here the list. Some are not too far away from you all, including, Macon County has a high impact. I believe Commissioner Patterson maybe mentioned that last time. But the trend is to, as far as regulations are concerned, to do it as a conditional zoning, not as a special use permit. You can see, I think it's 8 of these jurisdictions have adopted conditional zoning as the way that these are getting permitted. And here are some of the zoning districts that they have put them in. So, but that is kind of getting ahead of things a little bit, because what we're here to talk about is the development moratorium, the ordinance, and pausing things and looking into it quicker. I just wanted to kind of give you a preview of what some of the places that have gone ahead and done this, how they're doing it. And on that front, what you can see here is that the example, the things, just to kind of get you all thinking about what it is that you need to be looking at. It is things like separation setbacks, buffering, screening, noise limitations, water, closed loop cooling systems, verifications that the utilities will be able to serve them, electrical lighting standards and specifications, like solar farms, decommissioning requirements as it relates to what happens when these shut down, these operations shut down. How do we get rid of them? And then there's a miscellaneous category of other things, height requirements, etc. So those are all the things that, if you do adopt this development moratorium ordinance, these are things that you'll want to be looking at as it relates to regulating data centers. So the options for the board tonight, there's basically 3 options, which is, one, to just do nothing and keep on as you have been, which again, may not leave the town with adequate protections if a project does come to the town. 2 is to do what those 13 jurisdictions have done and just proceed straight with regulations and not adopt a moratorium. This approach is somewhat risky in that you do run the risk that you are going to get a data center project that gets in before those regulations, and will be able to proceed under the current UDO, which does not regulate data centers. And then third and finally is what you all have asked me to do, which is draft a moratorium ordinance. And that's what, as you could see from the previous slide, the majority of jurisdictions have done, 38 of the ones that have taken action on this issue. And so what does the moratorium do? Well, you have, under state statute, you have the authority to develop these or to adopt these moratorium ordinances. And it requires a public hearing, which you're having tonight, that is obviously noticed in accordance with the statute, which we've done. And then you have to have 4 findings, which we can go over when we go over the development moratorium ordinance. And that ordinance needs to include findings related to those 4 standards. And there are limitations. It needs to be narrowly tailored to kind of fit the time needed to really resolve the issue. It can't be endless, and it needs to be adopted for the purpose of regulating data centers and not residential uses. And then finally, there's some exemptions which are in the ordinance that you've probably seen, which includes vested rights, building permits, subdivision plots, things like that have already happened. Which, to my understanding and talking with Michael and Josh, there are none that have those currently. So if this were to pass the ordinance, I think there would be no grandfathered in or vested rights or exempt projects, as far as I'm aware, but they can correct me if that's wrong. So what happens after you pass the moratorium ordinance? So three main things. First is that, and this again is in the ordinance itself, but it'll be a study phase. There'll be studying, how to go about regulating these, what the uses are, what the impacts are, and how how you can fit those regulations with the impacts, narrowly tailored for the town specifically. The second thing is evaluating, what zoning districts these would go in and what permitting pathways there would be, such as, conditional zoning, special use permit, or other regulatory mechanisms. Some places allow them by right with certain standards. And so those are all things that we, with Michael and Josh and everybody, we can kind of work through, and have the planning board and have others weigh in on that, and members of the community as well. And so then once we've done the study and the analysis, once we've done the zoning, land use, regulatory, legal work, then you put those together and you come up with, essentially a text amendment or to the UDO that would incorporate data center regulations and standards, permitting pathways, etc. So that's my presentation. What you have seen is this version of the development moratorium ordinance. I will just kind of give a I'm not going to go into everything. It's a 9-page ordinance, but I will just give this high level overview that there, to be perfectly candid, there have been legal challenges to some moratorium ordinances. And so I have researched those and drafted this to be defensible against the claims that were made against those development ordinances. So, um, nothing's a surefire thing or anything like that, but I do feel like this kind of fully encapsulates all the things that we need, to ensure that we're doing this the right way, and it lays out a timeline for doing it. It lays out all why the alternatives won't work and everything like that. And so I kind of took best practices from across jurisdictions and tried to really incorporate all the things. And so I will stop and allow questions, but if you would like for me to go over like kind of the plan in the development ordinance, I'm happy to do that as well. But you probably already read it, so I don't want to repeat things.
Comment, please start discussion. Any questions for him? Then we'll open public comment, and then we may come back to you.
Yeah,
Questions? Any initial questions from the board?
Not right now.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Y'all making my job easy. Thank you. All right. Anything else from the board? I mean,
I guess the only question I've got is that, the three things that we need to do after passing this, assuming we pass it, how do we assign that out? The study of the impacts, what would be the process and the conditions where someone could apply? Would that go to the planning board?
I mean, I would say that's probably a call for Josh to make, and Michael, but I think what we've seen in other jurisdictions is that it's kind of a group effort. The attorney will, look at the regulations with the planning director, with the manager, kind of talk through those things. The staff, planning director and the town manager will work on assessing, what are the impacts, how this would look from a UDO perspective, what other jurisdictions are doing, that kind of thing, doing research on that kind of thing. So it'd be kind of a group effort on that initial first phase. I think then that would, whatever we come up with would definitely go to the planning board. It would definitely be a discussion there. It could also go to a committee of this group. The mayor could have one of the committees. I'm not sure all the committees, but one I'm sure probably fits this category. But yeah, there's not like one size fits all process for this. It's kind of just like however we want to go through it. We just need to make sure we're going through all those steps.
Okay, no, I mean, looking at what other jurisdictions have passed as far as setbacks, noise, height, things like that. And then hearing you say that, it seems like it's within the capability of the manager and the staff to kind of say this, we could complete these. We don't have to go out and hire a third party, I guess is where I was going. Because I'm definitely in favor of passing this. I just wanted to kind of think through how are we going to satisfy those criteria that we're signing up for?
Right. I have not seen a big push to have consultants come in and, do a full report and assessment and analysis and things. Um, I do think this is, we've got a very good and capable planning director and manager who can work, and I can work with them on this stuff. I don't think it's something I mean, it's new for everyone, right? So, I mean,
Right.
it is not like, there's experts in the data center field as it relates to regulations and those types of things. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm doing this for other jurisdictions as well. So we'll just try to do the best we can to make sure we're getting all the information and analysis done.
I'm good.
Good.
I think this is just the first step. I think we have a lot more to do, but we need this so we have time.
Gives us time.
Right. It's basically because of the vested right problem. We need to do this so that we don't get somebody doesn't rush something in here. Not that Highlands is going to be a high priority, but could do something that we haven't had an opportunity to actually address and see what the impacts are.
I agree fully. I agree. Can I get a motion we'll close the public hearing and then we'll take some action?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Grubb, second by Commissioner Weller. All in favor?
Aye.
Council action. I agree with you. It's really not, probably, I'm not in that business, but I wouldn't think from a logical standpoint, it's very financially feasible for a cryptocurrency mining facility to come to Highlands, but you can't tell what youth out up here might want to get into it or who might move into our town and want to do something here, but it's rather us be safe than sorry. And let's study it a little bit more. And those that obviously have a lot more knowledge than us can help lead us, guide and direct us in the right direction. So.
Well, there's a lot of information out there.
There is a lot.
And I guess my biggest concern, particularly with the Macon County one is can it be challenged by arbitrary and capricious kind of things? You have to put a setback on it, but why is that? Is that arbitrary? Do you have any reason to put it in that, in there? And thinking that couldn't be challenged. That's what we were trying to do, is make it so that we have enough data behind it, that this is the reason that we came up with this number.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's what we need to do.
Nick, just a question of order here. Do we need to approve the temporary moratorium and the statement of plan consistency and reasonableness, or can we do it just in one?
No, sorry. I think Josh said that he resent out or resent out the new version of the ordinance and without the statement of consistency and reasonableness, because that's not required by the statute. I just, old habits die hard. I just thought we needed to do that, but then I took that out because that's not required for just a development or a moratorium ordinance. It's only required for a text amendment or a rezoning.
Got it.
So it's just a motion to adopt the development ordinance moratorium.
Well said.
I make a motion to adopt the development ordinance for the moratorium.
Second.
We got a motion by Commissioner Weller, second by Commissioner Patterson. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, item number 10, Mirror Lake Dredging and Engineering. Michael Hansen with McGill and Associates. Welcome, Michael.
Getting to be a regular here.
Yeah, I enjoy coming up. Have to start integrating vacation days in with my trips up here. All right, so today I wanted to, I guess, first start off with what is apparently some good news on the question that we left with last time I was here, and that was the use of the R.O. Wilson property for disposal of the dredge material. We have communicated with DEQ on a number of occasions over the last month and arrived at an arrangement. That arrangement was actually made between DEQ and Mr. Wilson. So as of this time, the town is not a participant in that arrangement. And we did that very specifically because it's his area. And part of what the ultimate arrangement is being made is that the Mirror Lake material, dredged material, is going to be used for the purposes of closing his current operating landfill. So very specifically did not want to have the town tied in any way to that closure of that landfill. It was operated by a third party. So there was a communication that was sent directly from DEQ to Mr. Wilson saying that he had permission to utilize the material generated from Mirror Lake dredging for the purposes of doing the closure on his landfill. And we were copied on that. I provided a copy to Josh when we received that a few weeks ago. So I think that puts us in the best possible scenarios that we had discussed previously. And at this time, it would seem appropriate for the board to then take further action on negotiating with Mr. Wilson on the terms of the agreement and the overall cost. So I believe that will complete our work under Amendment 1 at this time. Any questions on that issue before I move on to the presentation? Okay. So the presentation here is starting to explore some of the details associated with the actual design. Now that we have a plan in place, we have an understanding of where the dredge material is going to go. I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of some of the particulars of the design before we move out and get it codified in writing, start the permitting process, and then have something come up later that said, hey, I didn't know about that. Let's pause again. So hopefully I can address any of those issues. I certainly brought forward things that came to mind as far as the details of the design that we haven't covered in these meetings previously. If there are questions related to anything I'm bringing up or anything other that I'm not bringing up, please let me know. This is the time for us to go over those issues and try and resolve any remaining concerns there are as to how the work is going to proceed. First slide.
Yep.
Please. There we go. So first of all, I went through and I took the opportunity to try and put together some example or typical cross sections of what the channel is going to look like once the dredging is done, where the current sediment levels are, what we expect the overall dredge depth is going to be, and how that dredge work in the channel affects anything adjacent to the channel. So I'll go through a couple of examples here to try and provide a little more information on some of the things that I thought might be important to this group. The sections that I have generally are in the location of the red lines that are shown on the diagram. And I've also taken some adjustment liberties to try and bring in a specific area that I wanted to speak to. So we can go on to the next slide. So this would be the first one. You'll notice that same slide that we just had up there is indexed in the bottom left-hand corner. So we're looking at the most downstream cross-section, which is in the open water of what we're referring to as phase 2, the open water of Mirror Lake. And a couple of things that I wanted to address here is, for the purposes of the cross section, I've got the break in the middle. So I'm really wanting to focus on what's happening on the shoreline on either side. And if we start on the right shoreline, I'm identifying where we have existing jurisdictional wetlands. Wherever we have wetlands that are currently defined in consistent with the option that was chosen by the board, we wanted to try and minimize wetland impacts and thereby minimize cost on the overall project that would have to be paid for offsetting those impacts. Therefore, we're going to hold a 5-foot buffer on all of the perimeter edges of the jurisdictional wetlands. And that is primarily to try and preserve not only the wetland itself, but that edge of wetland. Once we get the dredging done, there's typically a little bit of sloughing as water starts to move through the new cross section. It wants to find a new normal, and you'll end up with that hard cut edge kind of receding a little bit. We want to give that 5-foot buffer so that hopefully that recession doesn't migrate into the wetland and we end up losing portions of the wetland in the process.
How do you define the edge of the wetland?
The wetlands have already been identified. They are designated right now on our preliminary plans. And we went out with some of the folks from our environmental group went out, identified the perimeter edge of all the wetlands. And then through the permitting process, we will have those verified by the agencies. So then if I can turn your attention to,
Mike,
yes,
do you want questions as you go or wait? till the
yeah,
end?
no, go right ahead.
So the 5-foot setback from the dock that's shown there, are you sure that's enough to not have a dock cave in?
So yes, that's where I was headed next, was to go to the dockside. And right now we are using the same buffer on the docks that we had proposed to use on the wetlands. I will be coordinating with the geotech that we have on the project to verify that that 5-foot offset is appropriate. But in past projects that I've done, we've utilized that type of a buffer. And again, it's to try and not impact any of the existing soils underneath the dock, because we don't know the depth of the piers that are there. We don't know the condition of the piers that are there. And therefore we can't try and do any type of stability analysis on what's going to happen if we remove the material. So for safety reasons, we want to preserve the material around that area at enough of an envelope that we're not likely going to have impacts on that dock. And we'll get like I said, we'll get a verification on what that distance needs to be. If it, as we move through our design, it may end up being 5 feet. It may end up pushing out to 8 or 10 feet.
Okay.
But we will be defining that as we move through the design. So final documents that go to permitting and also come to the town, you'll see what that final offset is. Wanted to highlight that primarily because there have been comments made at prior meetings about individual citizens who wanted to have so they could get their boat into their dock. And I want to make sure everyone understands that's not going to be the end result of this project. We're going to dredge the lake, and we're going to end up with dredged material that's being moved away from the perimeter of the dock, but not up to the dock. All right, let's see here. I guess I'll also point out in the open water section, right now, the dashed line that I have going across showing the approximate elevation of the existing sediments in the lake. Obviously, this is one section. The sediment depth varies across the lake. In this case, we're looking at a 2 to 6 foot removal of sediments to drop down to this more trapezoidal section that you see across the lake. That overall depth has varied throughout the design process up to this point, trying to make sure that we are keeping the overall project within the means of the funding that the town has available. So we'll continue to do that as we move through the design and we start hammering in on getting total volumes. There may be some further adjustment to overall depth. But our intent is to try and maintain that open water depth at a minimum of 2 feet in all areas, it going down to as much as 8 feet. In as much of the open water area as we can. All right, any other questions before we move on?
What does JD line mean?
That's jurisdictional determination.
Okay.
So, and that is so we go out and do our preliminary jurisdictional assessment for the wetlands. And then when we get verification from the agency back, it comes back to us in the form of a jurisdictional determination line. And then that line will be shown on our plans. All right, so the next section is going just one area upstream. And this is in response to a question that Josh and I had talked about a few weeks ago, and that was the opportunity to potentially go in and dredge additional depth out of the phase 1 area. Remember, the phase 1 area is the area that's already been dredged by the Mirror Lake Improvement Association and their contractor that they brought in. There was an overall, I'll approximate about a 1.5 foot to possibly as much as 2 foot depth of sediment removed throughout most of the area that they called phase 1. And that is inconsistent with the rest of the dredge depth that we'll be doing in phase 2. So we have the opportunity to pull up into the area adjacent to the bridge and dredge that down to be consistent with the rest of the lake. Again, that is subject to adjustments as we move through the design process. But this is what that would look like if we were to move in that direction. As of right now, phase 1 is not part of our work area, so we would need direction from the board to add phase 1 into our dredge area as we proceed through design.
Well, if we don't dredge it to the same depth, particularly the downstream, it will all just settle out on us anyway, right? It would move.
The likely fate of the material that is around the bridge is that will end up getting scoured out during high flow events, pushing out into the area that's been dredged already in the open water area. So you'll end up with some settling. Now, the overall quantity, volume of material that's there is a fraction of the total volume we're removing from the rest of the lake. So it's not like you're going to have a complete replacement of the dredge volume, but it will be some overall reduction in depth. And like everything else, as you saw the sandbar that was there before, where the material gets deposited is not consistent. It will find areas where currents drop the water out and faster currents carry the sediments downstream. So you'll end up with probably the migration of that material to start reforming the sandbar that was there before, because there wasn't a significant amount of material removed in the overall depth profile of that area. Other questions on that?
But there will be removed.
Well, that was my question was, so we have to give you approval, or we have to ask you to dredge in the phase 1 area too?
Yes, I as of right now, our design is to do phase 2 and phase 3 in our contract. So if you want us to modify that design and cover areas of phase 1, we'll need direction from the board to do so.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand that the phases were actual
Mutually,
delineated.
I didn't realize they were exclusive.
Right,
to each
well,
other.
and delineated in a section as opposed to
Right.
just.
And I'm not, to clarify, I'm not saying that that's going to cost additional money. What I'm saying is, right now, we've excluded that area from the area that we're doing our design on. And if you wanted it included, we'd have to modify where we show the dredge limits for the contractor to dredge. And that may end up, as we adjust to grab more material, we may end up with a 1/2 foot adjustment for the dredge depth over the entire lake because of the offset of the additional material we're bringing in, because that material wasn't included in any of the quantities that we've discussed previously.
Understand. But the overall concept would be I guess my view would be whatever we do should be the best case scenario for phase one.
I would agree. It was an arbitrary demarcation. It's something that's a legacy associated with how we received the project because there was work that was already being done. Typically, we'd come in and do all of the area.
Right.
So because that work was already being done, we excluded it from the area we
Understand. And I will come to this in a little bit, but there's no question in my mind that we should ignore phase one and do what's right for the overall project.
I would agree. From a technical standpoint, I think that's the most appropriate approach.
Yeah. And I understand why it was approached that way originally, but, you know, we were going from a plan to get either way. Yes.
Yep.
Best overall.
I guess understanding the impacts on the overall project though, is important. In other words, if that means that you exclude the recreation loop or you don't go as far up the riverine, or the example you gave of saying, well, maybe the whole thing just becomes half a foot shallower. So, but it's hard for me to understand how much of a area expansion this is, because I mean, honestly, it didn't seem like they dredged a lot.
Well, I would agree with you. I guess in trying to assess the overall depth that could have been dredged, they dredged what they had available funding to dredge. And that's the same scenario that the city is in now, is that you're going to dredge what you can within the funding you have available. Obviously, because your funding is greatly larger than what they had to work with, you've got the ability to remove much more material. But ultimately, I guess I use the half a foot adjustment as an example.
Right.
It could end up being a 1/10 of a foot change.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think that, look, the overall point of the public money grant that we're entrusted with administering was to improve our water, save and preserve and improve our water quality. So it makes common sense, to your point, Jeff, that if we can get the sand out of there, it's a bigger sink for stuff to flow into in the future.
Yeah.
So it does make sense. It's just, you know, kind of thinking about what the original board direction was around the, you know, the project and the scope. I don't want to endanger that by saying, yeah, include this. And it doesn't sound like from what you're saying we are.
I don't believe so. And I would ask for your permission to proceed before we take action on this. Because I think there's some more information that we'll get to in a minute that
Okay.
might inform more discussion.
Thanks.
All right, next slide. So this brings us to the most upstream cross section. So typical of the riverine section, well above the area where Mill Creek comes in, and into the area where we've got a lot of areas that are almost walkable during normal water level. And we've got sediment areas that are fairly deep, relative to what was originally there. I've got the same scenario set up for the dock and the wetland on either side. The same offset is being represented here as it was in the open water. I also want to identify that the channel here is obviously quite a bit narrower, because the overall width of the channel shore to shore is in some areas as little as 50 feet. So the impact that we have from the wetland offset and the dock offset become more magnified. We end up with a narrower channel. The overall depth that we're looking at excavating in this area is 2 to 4 feet. In those areas where we have sediment right at the water level, just below water level, will be going as much as 4 feet. Those areas where we have water flow flowing through the area in shallow channels will be going more in the line of 2 feet of depth. Their intent here is to get an overall depth channel of 4 feet throughout the entire reach. I don't think that we're running into any real concerns on how flow comes through this area based on the overall width. We're still ending up getting on average, a 20-foot or greater width of channel through most of the areas. I pulled one of the narrowest sections that we're dealing with. So don't have a lot of concern there. But I did want to just emphasize that it looks a little different here than it did downstream. So if there are any concerns with that, we, have an opportunity to talk about it. Okay. So then the next slide takes us into what I refer to as the utility area. This is phase one upstream. And one of the things that was limited in what phase one did, what dredge depth they did in phase one, is that they were aware that these utilities were in this area. They had very limited information, as do we, on exactly where they are horizontally and where they are vertically. So for the most part, they did very little, if any, dredging in this area immediately from the bridge through what I'll call the bay of where Mill Creek comes in. And they did most of their dredging on the downstream side of the bridge, and they did a little bit right around the area that was, I guess, being referred to as kind of the potential picnic area, or canoe launch area, right where the spit of material comes out and Mill Creek comes in at that same location. And that was it. And primarily they did that area because they needed that to get access for pumping their material further up Mill Creek, where they were depositing their material for dewatering. So I've talked with Josh about this a lot. We've gone through everything that the town has available at this time related to design documents, hearsay, folklore, et cetera, on where, what lines are there and where they are. I've tried to label them all here on the diagram. We have water lines crossing the open bay area in multiple locations. We've got sewer lines crossing the open bay area. Some of these are as new as the 90s. Some of them are as old as the 50s. Some of them, we're not sure what the material is. Others, we feel fairly confident we know what the material is. None of these lines that are here do we have any as-built information. One of the lines that was most recently put in was actually done by McGill about 20 years ago. And we went back to the design information to see if we had any available information that was put in by directional drill, if we had any information from the directional drill at the time that it was installed, to try and validate where the line was. That's the one that we think we have fairly good information on, but I still don't have exact as-built soundings across where that line was put in. I've got an entry point on either end. I've got a general design depth, and I've got an indication from the directional drill company that they achieved the design depth. So I'm reluctant to rely on that consistently and say they achieved it everywhere, or did they achieve it at the deepest point? Because directional drill companies have a tendency to kind of go in, they hit something that's an obstruction or a rock or something, they'll dive down, they'll dive up, just to try and keep moving. So they end up with a squiggly line compared to that nice straight line that's in the design. And I don't have anything that describes that on ours or any of the other that's been done. So one of the things that I had recommended to Josh, again, it would need further action from the board, is going out and actually doing some investigations to identify the specific location of these lines. That wouldn't be done by us, that would be done by a third-party firm. I've contacted them to find out what the overall cost would be, and they've given me an initial number that they said was likely going to be in the $15,000 to $20,000 range to go out and do what's called GPR, ground penetrating radar. And that would be done at the entry points, and then assume a straight line between the entry points so that we at least know where the lines are and on the shore. If we want to go out and actually do borings to find out where the lines are at what depth across the open water, that will require further investigation on the order of $1,500 a hole. And it starts to stack up pretty quickly. So it really becomes a balancing act. How much do we want to know? How much do we want to pay to know what we want to know? Or do we not want to know anything? And then we go back to how far do we need to stay away from these things to feel that we're fairly safe? But one of the things I would recommend is that this area, if we do any dredging in this area at all, we do it only with hydraulic dredge.
I was gonna ask, isn't this an area that is just hydraulically dredged? Are
This
you
is the-
just worried about undercutting?
So this is the transition area. We are expecting that the contractor is likely going to.
Oh, I see, this is the
Yeah,
transition area.
is going to be transitioning from hydraulic dredge to the alternate methods that we've talked about. Now, I'll get to those in just a minute, as far as what type of hybrid dredging methods they'll be doing upstream. I expect for most of this area, it will all be hydraulic dredge, but this is one area where we may want to include in the specifications that the contractor is limited to only doing hydraulic dredge. Whereas elsewhere, we were leaving it up to their discretion as to what method they used to try and get an optimum price for the town. Once we start dictating how they do what they do, we typically end up raising prices. So this is an area where I think if we're not going to go out and locate these utilities, we would at a minimum, if we're going to do any dredging at all, want to limit them to hydraulic dredging so that we don't have somebody out there with a backhoe plunging into the sediment and finding a sewer line or finding a water line. That's, I think, the direction that we would want to go, presuming that there is no further investigation done. If there's further investigation done, we may have more assurance of what it is that we're looking at and where we can dredge. I think for the most part, that's not going to change the type of dredging in this area, but likely the depth that we're willing to go to. One of the things with these lines, because these lines have been in place, like I said, some of them been there since the 50s. The lines have a tendency as they age to rely more and more on the support of the sediment around them, the material around them, for the integrity of the line. So we don't want to remove that material. Well, if I don't know where the line was, I don't know if I'm 3 feet away or 10 feet away, if I'm approximating a depth. So I want to make sure that I'm as far away as I can be. So we would limit the dredge depth in this area to try and basically get a narrow channel like we have upstream all the way through to the bridge and nothing more. Because that's the best way for us to limit both the amount of exposure that might happen for any of these lines. Because as they get near the shoreline, they go up in elevation. And that's where they're probably more susceptible to being exposed, or at least the material being disturbed around them, and then potentially leading to a problem either at that time or at some future time. So that's kind of the nutshell of what I wanted to bring to you in this area. I realize it's a lot of information. I'm certainly open to answering any more questions, but this will be another decision point that we need to have on how to proceed in this specific area. Because it's phase one, and we weren't originally going to be doing any dredging in this area. And if we want to do dredging in this area, then how wide, how deep, whether or not we get additional information to make more informed decisions.
Well, I think we've saved money by being able to dispose of the dredging. So that should offset us with being able to dredge more if it's hydraulic dredging. And I agree, I don't want my pipes ripped out of the ground in that area. And I think the reason that the sandbar was there is because of the widening, slowing down the velocity, just fluid dynamics of it, that it's going to come right back if we don't dredge, and this is upstream of that. And so we need to dredge where the most likely deposits are, and as long as we hydraulic dredge and don't undercut the existing pipes, I think that would be the way I would go. I mean, I realize that we still have more upstream in phase 3,
Mhm.
which would be the backhoe dredging.
Right.
Once we get above where our last pipe is, our last crossing is.
Correct.
Um,
I agree.
I mean, engineering wise, that seems like the most reasonable thing to do.
Does.
Because we know that whatever we leave is gonna still shift.
It will.
It's gonna kind of.
Might be not in my lifetime, but in your kid's lifetime.
We all hope.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just saying from a standpoint of that it does take a really long time before.
yeah, unless you get another Helene or something, but,
Yeah.
Good.
Does that, I mean,
So do you need-
we're kind of in consensus that we do. Does that make sense? Does that give you what you need?
I think it gives me what I need as far as direction, to make sure I'm clear on it. You want to move forward with hydraulic dredging only in this area. And you want to move forward based on the depth that we feel we can go with the information we currently have.
Yeah, now let me ask you a question. You mentioned the $15,000, 15 to whatever, thousand, 20. That, if you do that, and I'm not, it won't change my mind on what we're talking about.
Mhm.
But would that, when you talk about the ground penetrating radar, that's only on the land though? Or does
Well,
that-
it would give us more information about exactly
where you enter and come out?
where the pipes are on land, so
And
we
the
know
depth.
where it enters going underwater. It would also give us more information about the depth at the point that it enters underwater. So that also informs some information. And then obviously we have the ability to go out and actually do additional testing in the water at additional cost.
Right. Well, I'll go back to this. From a person who lives off of professional fees, you know, I would defer to you to say, if it were me and I want to be smart, I suggest you do this. Or if we do hydraulic, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Not that it doesn't matter, everything matters, but, does it make sense to spend 15, I don't want to, $20,000 is a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I don't want to just throw it away if it's not necessary, but is it smart to do this? Would it be smart to do that? Would it be if we're going to hydraulic dredge in these areas? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I want to defer to the experts and I admit that I don't know what I don't know.
Mhm.
So.
Well,
that's-
I think that's exactly the point, is that I don't know what I don't know either. And I think that it would be preferable for our design and for our ability to provide as much removal of sediment in this area as feasible, and still be safe related to utilities,
Right.
that we proceed with getting some information. I am with you in that I want to try and limit the amount of cost related to this activity if we do proceed with it. And one of the things that I can do is if you do want to proceed with getting some information, I can go back and, as of right now, I've only gotten some general information.
Right.
I can coordinate with a geotechnical engineering firm that would be doing this work,
Mhm.
have them come out, take a look at the site.
Mhm.
We can share the information we have available from the plans. And from that, we can get a direct quote.
Right. And if we're talking about the ground penetrating radar, we're talking about all those things. Yeah, I don't see doing $1,500 a piece borings, and I'm talking about that first phase. And in that phase, if we can keep one line from not getting hit, damaged, et cetera.
Yes.
That is the cheapest insurance policy. I know it's not an insurance policy. It's just a little bit more sleep at night, policy. So I think that is smart money personally.
yeah, we have ground penetrating radar. Can't we send Carlton out to find the ends? If all we're doing is finding ends,
We can do
Carlton
that.
can find them.
Okay.
We can do that.
Well,
We have a mapper that has
And
a
we just-
GPR that could
and we just bought a new one.
Right.
get that data for you.
Okay.
So then we just leave what's out in
So then what I can do is provide some information back to you on where we believe all the lines are as a starting point. And where, at a minimum, we want to try and do soundings to identify where these lines reside. And
Good.
from the GPR, we can generally get a good horizontal location, depending on the type of material that's in the hole. Sometimes you get good depth, sometimes not, but you usually can get fairly good horizontal information from.
Well, then I think that's worth doing, and I think that's information worth having,
Okay.
just to be as, you know, moving forward as quickly and cautiously at the same time, which don't necessarily go together.
Yeah, no, I think that's ideal. I was unaware that the town had that capability. Certainly it will be at a lot less cost than bringing a consultant in from out of town to
Yep.
do that.
Is that realistic, Josh?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions on utilities?
Do you have more?
I do.
Okay, I'm trying, I have some questions, but we'll wait.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll let you finish.
All right, so next map, actually, that's also on utilities. So it just gives you a profile. If you go to the next slide, dredge and laydown areas and dewatering areas. I'm sorry, dredge laydown areas and dewatering areas. As of right now, all of the areas that are shown in white along the edges of the lake are the areas known to us that are potentially available for use for either machinery laydown, equipment, or for placement of dewatering bags. You'll note that the one that is lowest on the page on the far left, that is the area that was used in phase one.
Mhm.
And then the areas that are around the bridge and the area that is on the south side, right where the little spit of land is, where Mill Creek comes out, are the other areas that we feel are viable for locating some material and or utilizing for the purposes of entering the water, because they're going to have to be bringing machinery in and out of on and off barges, launching boats, that type of thing. The area that is along Colasaja Drive, I wanted to highlight. That area is wider because we are representing a segment of Colasaja Drive that we are proposing to close and utilize the entire pavement width from the shoreline back to the opposite side for the ability for the contractor to go in and use most of this area for the purposes of staging the dewatering. The volume of material that we're dealing with is going to be quite a bit more than we dealt with than MLIA dealt with in phase one. And we're going to need a much larger weight laydown area than they had in order to keep the operations moving in at least somewhat of a sequence process and not ending up with significant delays waiting for one bag to dewater and then come back in, replace it, and then start the operation again, which is what they did.
Right.
So with that in mind, this was really the only area that was available. We have gone out to the location, identified where the last driveway enters that section of road on the north and on the south, and we're pulling 10 feet back from where those two driveways are and proposing to close that segment. And those two locations would then have routes out back to the main roads in opposite directions. So again, I wanted to make sure that that was clear. We talked about this with Josh early on in some of the preliminary planning that we were doing. I wanted to bring that back to the board at this point, make sure everyone is clear on that is a material component of how we're going to get this job done.
Yeah, I mean, because I live very close to there. As long as you're saying that you've gone to the last driveway and you're going to go 10 feet, fine. But the area that you have highlighted in white along Colasaja, the two houses that are shown there, they actually do have driveways on the white area.
I'll have to take another look. When I put this together, I was referencing back to my Google Maps, and I may have had an older map or one that wasn't visible because of the foliage, but I will verify as part of the final plans where those lines are
But
And
that's why I was
because
listening
obviously-
more to the
yes.
words than looking at the
Yeah.
drawing. So as long as
So
you're.
we will definitely verify that as part of the plans.
That's the road where it says road closed there. That's Foreman Drive coming in to hit Coliseja. And then there's the hairpin turn. And so as long as you're going to provide access for the people that
Yes.
have homes, no problem.
All right, when I drove out there, and looked at it, driveway to driveway, the only thing that I saw that was between the driveways, there are a few staircases that come down to the road. And those, of course, would have to be blocked off.
Yeah.
But driveway to driveway, I think we still have a significant area out there to utilize.
You're right.
One of the other things that I do want to emphasize is that there is going to be shoreline tree removal as part of this process. We're going to limit it as much as we can, but just the ability for the contractor to move machinery in and out of the water, to be able to put all these silt bags up and be able to pump up on shore and have access for their machinery to be able to move the silt bags around and load them for haul off. We're going to end up removing some trees.
Is that our property or is that a road right away or is that
Right between the road and
the
the water. It's the, Mirror Lake Homeowners Association owns that strip.
So that is one thing that we had coordinated early on with that group, was that we were going to need easement permission. And they had said that they would facilitate getting easement permission from their members. So as we get the plans pulled together, we'll provide that information to them. We'll identify specific locations where we need easement right. And we'll make sure that that'll be part of our process as we move through to design or through permitting. Because that's something we're going to have to show as part of permitting, is where all the private property is. And do we have easement rights to go across or occupy any of the private lands?
One more quick question, Mike. On the drawing that's on the screen, it says it would be dredged between 2 inches and 18 inches. Did you mean 12 inches?
Oh, the little thing in the lower right or
That is
halfway down right?
referencing that's referencing the channel for,
The rec loop.
right. And that was
That doesn't seem right.
between depth, yeah. I think it was supposed to be 2 feet and 18 inches.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So, great.
Yeah, our
That kinda
intent
makes a
was,
difference.
yeah, our intent is to provide a accessible channel that has minimal depth to be able to support kayak or canoe.
Got it.
So,
Thanks.
yep. All right, let's see here. Next slide. So here I just wanted to talk a little bit about, we're expecting that our dewatering is going to be very similar in nature to what was done in phase one. This is a picture of what was done in phase one on the piece of property that I had noted earlier. We anticipate that we'll have multiple of these types of bags set up in the areas along Coliseja Drive, as I had shown in the last diagram. And they will be a continuous operation of pumping in, dewatering, going in, salvaging these bags, excavating into haul trucks and hauling them out to disposal at Roger Lee Wilson's site. So the only other thing I want to note here is at each one of these bag locations, these bags are basically designed for each use. This bag is probably wider than what will end up being used because of the limitations we have on the overall width of property that we have available. But the overall length, probably comparable. The area that I have in the inset in the bottom left that's an injection of a polymer material that is actually injected into the pipe ahead of where it goes into the bag, because there's some residence time that needs to occur as the flow comes through that pipe. And as it gets into the bag, you're wanting that material to coagulate, drop out, and release water as quickly as possible. So that will be also part of that process. Whether or not we end up using that same polymer or a different polymer, it will be up to the contractor, but it will have to be one that is approved by the state. Next slide. I put this in here just to, I guess, bring forward a little bit of information and address one of the previous questions from the public. There was some questions about what type of machinery would likely end up being used in this area. The top right is a photo of what was used in the phase 1 area. That's the hydraulic dredge. So that's likely going to be the type of apparatus that we would see through all of phase 2 and whatever portion of phase 1 we end up doing in the overall process. As we move in through that transition area and we move up into phase 3, we'll likely start transitioning over to the type of machinery that we see at the left, where you've got a land-based excavator at the far left, and then you've got a hybrid excavator that's in the middle. And that is typically, you can't see it in this photo, but typically there's a barge that also comes along with it. So the excavator is removing the material, dumping it on the barge. As the barge gets filled up, they pull the barge down, offload the barge, replace it with another barge, and the operation continues.
Does that material have to be dewatered too?
Yes, it would end up having to be dewatered. What they would end up doing is it would be dewatered less because we're losing a lot of water off the edges of the barge, but it typically takes still several days for that material to get to a point where its consistency is enough dirt and not water to be able to be loaded into a truck and not end up leaving a trail of water behind it as it's being hauled through to disposal.
Yeah.
So we are still expecting that material, even if it's loaded on a barge, is probably then going to be brought to shore, loaded from a barge into a hopper that would then pump it into a bag. And they may, depending on how they do their operation, they may have the hopper directly on the barge. And then it would, depending on what equipment they have, what manpower they have, there's a lot of different variations of how they might go about doing this work. The bottom right, I'm representing that because that may be the type of machinery that would be ending up being used in the utility area. That is a hydraulic dredge, but it's made for small ponds. So it works in confined areas and allows a much closer calibration of how deep you're going and where you're pulling material from. So this is probably the range of the type of equipment that we expect to see utilized by the contractor on this job. And with that, it's the end of my presentation for slides. I do want to remind you all, we had submitted at the end of our last session, you'd given us direction to go ahead with preparation of Amendment 2, which is the remaining design phase. We did that, submitted it to Josh for administrative review. My understanding is that's been done at this point, and for us to move forward into design and permitting, we'll need to have that approved either administratively or through the board, however you choose.
So you received that by email this afternoon, right before the meeting. Nick and Evan has reviewed that and they were good with it. Okay, here's the big question. What's the implication on the money side?
So essentially it's the same amount that we had talked about. That was the residual funds from the last meeting.
Right.
That has not changed.
Okay.
All of that is exactly the same. We're just basically putting it in a document for approval at this point.
Okay. That's the way I see it. But the other question I have related to it is, does this also, we gave you kind of direction on somewhat ignoring the perimeter of what was phase 1 and included in the overall project, that does not affect this?
So if you want to ultimately move forward with phase one and utility area has been discussed, that does not change that result.
Well, that was my question.
I will take that as, we'll coordinate that as an exchange of email to, just so we have it documented in the file that it was an
As a
amendment to.
directive.
Yep, as a directive, but it doesn't change the outcome so long as I know it now. Changing our minds later, might result in, something different, but
Okay.
we can integrate it now. Now's the time to make the decision.
Okay. The only reason I was asking that question, I do think phase one is important to incorporate, because again, our grant came from water quality grants. So I realize if we can get some recreation out of it, we can get some aesthetic improvement, et cetera, fantastic. But obviously not our primary focus and what we've been tasked to follow through on. So I do think phase one needs to be included in that. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a consensus of directive.
Judge,
Yeah, when you said phase one, phase two, I thought that was a time frame phase, not a geographic phase.
Yeah,
I didn't
myself as
understand
well. I did not either. Because I didn't see phase one as actually completing that area.
No, yes,
It was just the beginning of
just
the
the
area. So
phase, the start of
yeah.
the whole thing.
let's handle that real quick with a motion, and then I have a couple questions not related to this. I make a motion to incorporate phase one area into the overall scheme of phase two. We have a motion by Commissioner Weller. And utility location.
Yeah,
And via the town. Well, and utility locate, well, that would be by the town.
We're not out in the, we'll do the banks, but.
But that's all we were,
Okay.
that's all we were
That's
worried
all
about. So nothing related to utilities. Phase one to be included in the phase two
Right.
area as an overall look, as a motion.
second.
Yes.
Second by Commissioner Patterson, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next question. Please remind me of your total quantity of material that you're expecting to remove. Remember offhand?
So it's moving around a lot. As of right now, we have coordinated with Mr. Wilson to take up to 90,000 yards. We believe, based on our latest calculations, and that obviously is going to change as we move through integrating phase one now, that we were going to end up removing likely somewhere in the neighborhood of 60,000 total yards. So as we work through the final layout of where all these dredge lines are, what volume is actually being generated by that, we can then work through those details. We can bring that number back to you as part of the final design.
And question I have related to that, and this is a month ago, so forgive me, I'm going strictly from memory. 60 was when we were doing at the landfill, 80 was when we were is what was projected when we were able to use Roger Lee Wilson's because of the money savings. And but again, you're coming back to us.
Yes.
We're going to maximize.
Yes, we're going to maximize. I didn't remember the 80, but like I said, it's between 60 and 90 at this point. So 80 falls within those lines. It's all going to come down to where the math comes.
Right.
We've got a certain amount of money that we are working with. We've got a certain amount of estimated cost, and we're working towards trying to make those two come together in a neat line. And then we're going to have to probably refigure that again once we bid the job and we find out what it actually costs and how close we were on our estimates.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question. Where the reason I asked that was, I think there was I know there was some disappointment with phase one about the actual depth of the dredging that happened. So when we move this into pricing, when these contractors bid on this, are they bidding upon 60,000 yards of material being moved out, or are they bidding on just dredging these areas?
So
Do you catch my question?
I do, I do. And part of that is going to come back to decisions made by this body. We talked about that 2 meetings ago, that we needed to work our way through the decision of whether or not we were going to do phase two and phase three together. We expect phase three is going to require a longer permitting period, but it's still going to overlap likely with once phase two is actually underway. phase three is going to come in at some point during that construction period. And are we going to move forward with that or not at that time? And I think a lot of that decision point is going to come from whether or not you want to deal with multiple contractors, you want to work with one contractor, but it also is going to come down to money. How much money was actually, did it actually cost us to go into contract with phase two? How much money we have left over to do phase three as we work through that? So this is going to be an adjustment process all the way through. I fully expect that we're going to end up with a range of costs coming from contractors. I'm hoping that we end up with multiple contractors that's going to work to the town's benefit, that we have, 3 or more contractors that bid the project. Because usually that means that you've got at least one, if not multiple, that are sharpening their pencil and trying to come in with their best available price. But a lot of this stuff is I'm basing our numbers right now on best available information, which was our prior experience working with dredging of this type, as well as the information that I obtained from the phase one contractor, because they were nice enough to share with me how they bid phase one. So I've got some sense, they didn't give me exact numbers, but I've got some sense of the number of dollars per cubic yard that they were looking at as part of what they did in phase one. So we've utilized that as one benchmark amongst the others that we were compiling to come back in and say, we believe that it's going to be this much per cubic yard for hydraulic dredge. They didn't do any other type of dredge to any significant amount. So I don't really have a hybrid dredge comparison. So that one, we went off of available information that we could discern.
Go ahead. Okay. I know Roger Lee, when we haul it down there, he's going to know exactly how many trucks we put through there, and we can take an average and get a cubic yard. I just don't want us to end up where we've only removed 15,000 cubic yards versus the expected 60 for the amount of money we have. So.
Right. And I think that ultimately, as you move forward with discussions with Mr. Lee, Mr. Wilson, sorry, on entering into terms and agreement, the overall cost obviously is going to have an impact on the job. So the better we get for per truck, the better off we are. Is relationship to how much money we utilize for disposal versus how much we utilize for actual removal.
Yeah.
And as you get that information in place, that will again inform our numbers to go back in and recalculate that balance. But I think it'll be imperative for us to incorporate assurances on the contractor on how they're loading the material, how the trucks are counted. Are we counting by truck? Well, if we're counting by truck, then how much material is in each truck? And how are we monitoring that? We don't want trucks going away that are half empty. And that being counted as a truck when it gets to the other end, and you're paying double price for that truck.
And that's how it's going to be counted. So
correct.
So my other question related to that is, based on 60,000 or 80,000 or whatever the number might be, the estimate on number of loads is based on, with this type of material, how many yards per load?
Depending on the type of trucks that they use, right now we're estimating 15 to 17 yards per truck.
Okay. Which is a
typical tandem axle.
Yeah.
But the contractor could come in and decide that it'd be unusual, I think, on the confined roads that we have in this area, but they could choose to use larger trucks. Or more likely, they could choose to use smaller trucks because they're easier to navigate the roads around here, and they might be more available.
Well, and Commissioner Tate and I are going to be talking to Mr. Wilson, and that's a piece of the puzzle that we're going to have to make sure we understand once we know the contractor, because if you're expecting 15 to 17 and you bring in 8 to 9 on each load, then obviously that needs to adjust and we'll have to work on the fly. But because obviously you're not paying the same amount for both of those trucks.
Correct.
Per load. So, okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Any further questions? Good. Thank you,
I
Michael.
mean, I don't know that I understand it all. I'm trying to figure out whether it would be more economical to take more out of the phase 3 area because it's an easier maybe to pull it out than it is to hydraulic, and you actually get more out rather than phase 1 going all the way to the bottom.
But I don't think phase 3, we can go quite as deep simply because of the
No,
wetlands.
but there's a lot there.
Yeah,
just in the-
agreed.
In the,
Agreed.
with, because a lot of that is not wetland, but it is sand.
Another consideration is that if the end goal is at least in part based on water quality, you're better off taking the material, more of the material in phase 2 than you are in phase 3. Because the material in phase 3 is mainly coarse sands, not really leading
Not
to a lot
defined.
of problems downstream. Whereas the material in phase 2, primarily silts, very fine sediments. Those are easily stirred up and transmitted downstream.
Okay.
And that's needs to be a consideration also.
That answers my question.
Yeah, it
Let's
does.
get it out of phase 2 then.
Yeah. And last question I have, and then we can move on, but, the other aspect of this is if we're going to discuss at a later date, is we have phase 2, phase 3. Do we do it all together? One of them is timeline because of permitting process, whether it's a nationwide permit versus an individual permit. That was one of the subjects we've talked about before. We did talk about likely going 2 and then 3. Will doing it that way, is that going to get us potentially more bidders, less bidders, or no different on phase 2 versus coupling them together? Because I know some of these companies don't do every type of dredging.
Correct.
Potentially. So they'd have to couple with another company potentially in order to do the total project together. So is that, in your opinion, and that's all you can offer in this case, do you think we have stand a better chance of getting more bidders if we keep it as 2 and 3 separate?
I guess my reaction would be that typically the larger the project, the better. So if we put phase 2 and phase 3 together, it is a larger project financially for a contractor.
Understand?
So it's more likely to garner the interest of a broader sector of
Okay.
contractors, even if they have to team up to do the work, or if they have to bring in equipment that they don't have and lease it for the period of the job. If you break it up, the more pieces you break it up into, probably the higher cost you're going to pay for each piece. And it's, there's at least a potential that you'll drop out some of the contractors that may have bid the bigger job because you're a smaller job. But that's just going, again, based on past history of bidding.
That's just when you talk about, just your general conditions of coming in and getting everything set up alone. So it's no different than building a house, building a commercial building, doing a development, doing whatever. It's all the same way. So.
Correct. Yeah, your
that helps.
mobilization, bringing all the equipment to the site and getting set up to do the work is where the lion's share of the money is for the contractor. Once they're underway, they're just paying bills.
Right.
They're out there, doing their job and trying to meet the goals of the project and working to try and get it done as quickly as they can.
Well, that helps me kind of see where my mindset might go in the future, depending on the information we get. It's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, item number 11, Porch Fest Pine Street closure request. We have a request to close Pine Street for Porch Fest from 1 PM to 6 PM on September 20th. And Meg, welcome.
So we just put in a request to close Pine Street during Porch Fest from 1 to 6 PM. Just in anticipation of trying to make sure that's a family friendly space. We want to move like kid activities and different things to that area. We had previously had done that at Bascom and we're not using the Bascom this year. We wanted to centralize it because it's in that area in the hopes of would support that during the Porch Fest.
And this is just on that Sunday.
Just on that side. Yeah.
It says on here, I was just looking at the thing again. It says no alcohol is planned, so I presume you're not serving, but is alcohol
To the
allowed?
kids, no,
No.
not to the kids.
Nothing.
I mean, it will be allowed at the venues, like the high dive will be part of it.
Correct, but you're not planning on and on.
Not at the park itself.
Correct.
We won't be serving alcohol.
Or it won't be allowed either. So.
Okay,
So I have one question, sorry.
no, sorry, you go ahead.
Under parking, it said additional parking would be requested. Are you gonna park on the grass?
So we have like two bands that are playing in that, and in years past, we've marked off a couple of areas so that they could load and unload. And that was really what it was in anticipation of just.
Okay, so it wouldn't be anything permanent
Yeah,
there.
so that they could offload their equipment is really much like they do on Saturday nights or, you know, when you have somebody that's, you know, spending on their band equipment.
We have Chief wants to speak.
We would need to shut that down the night before. It'd be very difficult for us to have two officers trying to get all those vehicles going before 1 o'clock. So if we could just shut it off the night before, we put barricades in.
At,
Or 7 a.m.
That's-
until 9.
like, when you say the night before.
We might do 11, we may do 12.
Okay.
a.m.
Okay.
Is that not-
4 a.m.
But it's a Sunday.
We would do it Saturday night.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many people in those churches around there use that as parking?
I can tell you, we cannot get that. We have not tried, but with two officers on, it would be very difficult for us to shut that street down at 12, 1 o'clock. So I don't know what we'll be doing.
There's,
If they move, that's
Just a
fine,
problem.
but you got people parking there.
but you're talking about Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It is highly used on Sunday morning, and if we shut it down on Saturday night, they're gonna have to park somewhere without maybe prior knowledge.
Well, but when is the date of this event?
Chief, could we put the signs up a couple days before?
Yeah.
You think that would help?
Oh, yeah.
To clear
Like
people out
on
by-
Pine Street when we shut down, we could make up signs and say the street will be shut down.
Yeah, you get to park there till noon, and then you gotta leave.
Then
At least on that end, you could shut off
we
the,
could shut off.
the
part of
4th
it
Street
and
end.
that
But-
sends a message.
But that end is the part that's actually the park.
I know, but that is also the end that it happens to be closer to.
No, I understand that.
Where the people
I
are
understand.
more likely to park. And if
Yeah.
you give them a warning that your car will not be moved,
But-
you won't be able to get out of here if you don't get out of here. by
Getting them
12.
actually moved, if they don't move by noon, is not gonna happen.
Yeah,
It's not like we can call 22 tow trucks in, so,
yeah, I don't know. I'm
I
just
don't- for this
trying- I'm
one-
just trying to anticipate that,
understand.
that is a very
Good
used
point.
area on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And you had asked for 1 PM and then chief says that's logistically hard to do.
I mean, I know
It's
last year
also
when we ran around
logistically-
and put signs up, there were a few cars that were, I mean, you know, that we talked about with you guys to do. We put the signs up, but we didn't have the park closed. There were a few cars that were there.
Yes,
It's kind of inconsequential to us. We, you know, people aren't really gonna be in the park until 1, but I understand what the chief is saying, but if somebody has to get in their car, generally,
you go on around.
yeah, that's okay. I mean, we're
Yeah.
not gonna, it's not like we're gonna let them.
But the bigger problem comes into play when it is shut down and people are running around all the places to
Mhm.
park, and then they come and want to leave. That's the dangerous
Yeah,
situation.
No, you're right.
I mean, I
No, it
understand
needs,
your
it needs to
concern,
be,
but-
it needs to be shut. I
Yeah.
just don't know, you shut it the night before, that basically obliterates any parking in there for the Sunday morning services. Which are quite well used, but most people are gone by 1 o'clock.
Just for what it's worth, you know, we did shut it down for the Twilight 5K,
Mhm.
the whole day on Saturday.
That's
And I think
Saturday.
it was the same rationale that the police chief used, which is, you know, it's easier to keep people from coming in and trying to deal with them.
Well, that's Saturday.
I know, but I think that the logistical thing that she's pointing out is that it's very hard once they're in there to get them out. So, I mean,
I understand that too. I'm just trying to find out if there's some way we can accommodate everybody. Or not inconvenience somebody, lots of people. And they've asked for, and I understand that, you're not asking to have it closed any sooner than that, so it's not your problem, it's our problem. Being able to get them out, and most of them would be, gone anyway, as soon as services are over.
We even know what time services are.
And Meg already said, you don't really care if a couple of cars are there, that,
I mean, last year they were gone before it ever started, you
right?
know, so I mean, but I understand what the chief is saying. If somebody decides to go to lunch and they don't move their car and then suddenly there's a bunch of kids
Running around.
looping. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know what the answer is. I just know it would be ideal to be able to put the tents and have kids and let that be very kid friendly.
But if we let them know that they can park here, but they have to be gone by noon because of,
Yeah.
you know, it will be closed and you won't be getting your car back, move your car before lunch.
Or we'll provide toilet paper and people can like,
When
no,
that
I'm just kidding.
happens-
Just kidding.
When that happens on Halloween, do people get upset when you tell them they have to sit there for 2 more hours, 3 more hours until Halloween's done? So I mean, I understand that and inconvenience, but I'm in favor of closing it and I'm going to defer to the chief. I understand it's inconvenient for a Sunday, but I'm okay with it. And I think this is a great event for our town as a whole. So,
Well, I'm not.
No, I understand that,
I'm
but
just trying to see if there's any way we can mitigate the.
yeah, I understand that. I just don't see how. I just really don't.
We've been doing Pine Street for 10, 12 years.
So let me ask a
And
quick,
it's still at Pine Street, everybody that comes down should know, and they find out what you said. And still even at 5:30, we're still calling people with something with their vehicles. But at that point, we have 3 extra. Or, excuse me, an extra person to work Pine Street to deal with that situation.
Oh, yeah, right.
And
and
I'll be at Universal Studios, so I don't. I'll be made, so I can imagine I'll be getting a lot of calls, they're trying to tow my vehicle. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'll let y'all work on it. I don't have any problem closing the street. I'm just
I understand.
trying to figure out
Yeah.
timeframes.
I'm going to make a motion to allow this to happen from 1 to 6. And I would, if it's okay with them, I would defer to chief on when it closes. And I'm not throwing you under the bus on that one. I'm just saying, I'm in agreement with that. It needs to happen the night before.
Could I just make, it actually, the request is from 7 AM to 8 PM.
To
On the
close
form.
the street.
Yeah, on the form, it's 7 AM to 8 PM.
Well,
So it
that-
effectively is the night before.
Well, that's my motion.
I'm just looking at the form.
My motion is as per, to approve as per your request.
I second.
No, it says underneath it says street closures 1 PM to 6 PM.
Yeah, but it says start time 7 AM.
Yes, that's the overall.
But that's right, move things in
Okay.
I'm going to say approve the
And-
request and defer to.
and
our
let
police
y'all work out the
department.
logistics with the police.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, this is a motion to approve the special use permit that's been submitted, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, as submitted.
all right.
Motion by Commissioner Weller.
Second time.
Second by Commissioner Grubb. I'm gonna make one addition to your motion. If you can please, fill out all of section 3, the special use permit regarding the alcohol that I mentioned earlier.
Okay,
You
sure.
just need to
Yeah.
check no.
Just need to check
Sorry, I
no
filled
on
it
them.
out 3
Yeah.
times. I got.
Yeah, just make sure you check no and then your signature's at the bottom.
Okay,
Yeah,
no
that's
problem.
it. Yeah, all right.
Okay,
All in
good.
favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 12, comprehensive plan review discussion. This has my name about it, so I'll try and kind of discuss what I know about it, and then, but I'm gonna need a lot of input from all of you. But we tasked the planning board with reviewing the comprehensive plan, which I think has been in effect for 4 years. Please correct me, 4 years now,
Yes,
roughly.
almost.
They did meet, and from my understanding from some of the planning board members, as well as the minutes that I've read, I think there was some, a lot of confusion about what they were actually doing. And I think in their motion, they actually requested for a liaison, maybe from the town board, to maybe come and meet with them and discuss this.
Mhm.
And I think it's up to us to decide which direction we want to go. Do we want to have a joint meeting with them? Do we want one person to go? Or do we want to send some tasks from here? My personal opinion on it is, just because I've worked on them in the past here, numerous times, twice, in fact, in years past, is that when we task them to review it, I think that you kind of look at the overall comprehensive plan, then you go through it section by section. So maybe they take natural resources for one meeting, maybe they take another section for the next meeting. And they review kind of what the town is doing a good job with in that section, what we might not be doing a good job with, what we might need to add, what we might need to delete. And then I don't think, again, this is my opinion. I'm not speaking for the whole board. I'm speaking for Jim Tate right now, is that I don't think that, in my opinion, we're looking to reinvent the entire comprehensive plan. We're just trying to update it, again, learn from it, the best that we can, and try and give us a new plan moving forward to see where we need to improve on what we've been doing a good job with, and try and step forward. But I think if I was on the planning board, I would take it section by section and not get it. It's really overwhelming when you look at it. I think it's 150, 180 pages when you look at it in total. But just kind of knock it down in sections and keep chopping until you get it done. But that's my 2 cents. I'm looking forward to y'all's, and just so we can give them some good direction on what we want to do.
So when this was sent over to the planning board, the concept behind it was, at first we talked about having a joint meeting, and I said it'd be good if the planning board, and I'm the one that said have the planning board look at it first, but maybe the directive wasn't quite as refined as it should have been, because my perception of why we were sending it over to him is not, again, I'll go back to not redoing the comprehensive plan at the moment. Obviously, we will do that in the coming years. But we should look at the comprehensive plan, look at the sections like Commissioner Tate is talking about, and pull out the items, not pull them out, but identify the items that one, and I don't mind if we have a list that says, okay, this was supposed to be addressed and it has been, sidewalk plan, short-term rentals, those sorts of things. You know, they've kind of, we've looked at those, the short comprehensive plan had made statements about it, and those elements came out of that. However, there's other areas that we haven't yet. So it's really just to look at them and say, what are our priorities? It's a priority list that we put together. And I was wondering if the planning board could do that first, not have a meeting where they try and solve all those problems or come up with what we should do with each element, but identify the areas that we should prioritize and look at. So whether it has to do with the zoning map, whether it has to do with how the comprehensive plan versus our current zoning map, and look at those elements, how they compare and contrast. That's just one element. If that's top priority, make it top priority from them and then us. And maybe that needs to be explained a little bit better. And whether it's a liaison or it's a joint meeting, I'm open to suggestions, but the intent was to not now that we've handled one or two things off of that comprehensive plan, let's not put it on the shelf and wait till we're required to do it again. Let's look at those elements and see what our priority list should be moving forward. So that's just my thought.
Jeff, are you
As a
saying
general
the
statement.
priority list of the things that haven't been addressed yet?
Well, the things that haven't necessarily been addressed, that they suggested addressing, or, you know, and some people may come back and say, well, you addressed this, but you really didn't handle this. And that's fine. That's all part of the discussion. It's part of the reason why I wanted the two groups to meet separately first, so that one wasn't being guided by the other.
Mhm.
And we have a broader spectrum of ideas, and we compare and contrast our lists, so to speak, if you're talking about our priority lists. But again, you know, the idea is, you know, let's not, and I will tell you, I've heard people verbally say that the comprehensive plan is a requirement, the town gets it, and then they put it on the shelf and they wait till they're required to do it again in 7 or 8 years, which I think is unfair. But at the same time, I just want to make sure that we are actually doing our due diligence now that we have the comprehensive plan in hand. And again, I will strongly say I had no intent, as we talked about this early on, to start the process of redoing that plan at the moment, but to investigate whether or not we're doing what we should be doing and pulling it from the comprehensive plan and using that as it's designed as a guide, and use that guide to guide our thinking. And 4 years later, some of the discussions as we go may have changed. But again, so I think, I do know, I was not at the meeting. I can't speak to that specifically. I do know, based on newspaper coverages, it sounded like it might have at times gotten off in the weeds a little bit. And they were trying to
repair a light bulb when the electrical system is down type thing. So that's kind of, that's my take. So, and again, just like Commissioner Tate said, that is just how I felt about it going into it. And I think,
So, and I kind of agree with you. We're not trying to redo the plan. We're trying to see where we are in the midst of implementing the plan. And as I said, as you say, check things off of what we've done or what we need to address or what we addressed well or what we addressed poorly, those kinds of things. But I do think it may be because we deal with this more than the planning board does, that the planning board may need that joint meeting so that we can all kind of sit down and get on the same page. That's what we're asking, not to go through it line by line and say, okay, this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed. We're not asking you to change anything. We're asking you to tell us where we are in the process of meeting it.
and what should we work on?
And what should we work on? What do we think our priorities are? What do you think your priorities are? And as you say, I agree, more opinions is better than fewer opinions. But more opinions who are listening to everybody's opinion is better than us deciding and then deciding and then trying to meld that
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of with Jim in the sense is that we need to actually have just to sit down and a discussion of where we think we are in the plan. What we think our priorities are because we get the phone calls and what they think the priorities are because they're out in the community.
Right.
So we just need all these ideas and come up with a way of doing it. And the fact that they've looked at it is not wasted time because they've had to look at it.
The discussion has started.
Right, the discussion started and now we need to have that discussion where we're both in the same room at the same time. So that we can get that way forward without changing the plan, but just where we are in the process of implementing the plan.
Agreed.
I think that's what
Can
you're
we do
saying.
that? That's exactly what I'm saying. And I think if the joint meeting is the way to accomplish that, then we should schedule one. Yeah. Can we do
Well, that's
that?
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I agree with you that that's what we need to do is
Right.
to assess where we are. But the only way we can assess where we are, so everybody's kind of on the same page as how we move forward, is to have that joint meeting so that we kind of see where everybody's priorities are and how we think we should attack it.
Right.
I guess, I think I'm broadly in agreement. I was thinking of how to make the meeting most productive. And I do think that, before we sit down and meet, it would be helpful for the planning board to really go through by section and say, here's what we believe we've completed. I mean, that's just that simple.
But it also could be if we gave the entire board a directive and say, this is what our goals are, not goals as far as the plan, but this is what we're trying to accomplish with the plan. So at least everybody, even if it's on their own, can do that.
Yeah.
That without having it as a discussion format and then we all meet together. Because that was actually my attempt
Right.
when I suggested having them meet first and then come back to us. But they, again, I think.
Well, I mean, I feel like that, really, we shouldn't have to, the reason we have a planning board is to actually look at matters like the comprehensive plan. That's really kind of their only big thing to do.
When they don't have any cases to hear.
That's right.
Right.
And so that's why, I think that coming up with, regardless of the sequencing, I'll take that off the table for a second. What is done? I do like the idea of the things that are not done. What do they see as priorities based on the input that they're getting? We can match it up with our input, Amy, to your point. And then, what would be things that they feel should be added? And we don't have to add them now. They can come up for our next cycle. But I mean, if we're going to do this, it's sort of a stoplight, what's done, what needs to be added, and what's the priority. So I generally think that, I agree. I don't see this as a total redo. We're trying to do a pulse
Right.
check of where
Yeah,
we are.
agree. Yeah. So I guess I'm going to agree. I'm going to, again, agree with, it sounds like we're all in agreement, but
Yep.
I do think the joint meeting would be good, but I think the purpose of the joint meeting would be to lay down what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Okay.
It's
Give us
not
a
a matter of
direction.
starting to look
Give us
through everything.
No, that's fine too. I mean,
Doesn't have to be
An
a 3-hour
agreed
meeting.
upon kind of what we're doing and where we're going and why.
Right.
Thoughts on that, Michael?
Good.
Okay.
Everybody on
You
United.
think we can do that in a work session?
Yeah, workshop.
Absolutely.
An hour?
Only an hour.
Well, but again, we're not trying to identify the items. We're trying to discuss exactly what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
I mean, that's my take. Because I think, again, we're going to get stuck in the weeds. Because then I do think then we go back
'Cause we
and
need
they
that-
meet on their own to look
Right.
at the individual items.
All right,
So, Josh.
I just think there's, and I wasn't at the meeting, but talking with Michael, I think there's, as you see, as you scroll down through here, as Jim said, this is a large document.
Mhm.
A lot of these things have been addressed. A lot of them have not, but I think the direction needs to come from the board. What exactly do we want? You know, what does the board want them to do? Because I think what happened, they were taking public comment for long periods of time.
No, not too long, but they were talking about doing that.
So I think it's not really necessarily, do we reinvent the plan? We just need to take what's in the plan and there's some really good items in here when you start scrolling down that goes in, and it will definitely take a long period of time to do that. But to
Yep.
do that, you've got to stay on course and go straight down through those and say, these are the high priorities that we want the board to look at.
Yeah, I think Jim's approach where they go through them section at a time is good, but I think that right now, they need to know that what our goal is, basically.
Exactly. And stay on track, because if it wanders and the public has input, we'll be here 2 years from now.
Well, because they will have input at some point.
At some point.
But we got to
And
identify.
again- But again, it's not a new plan, it's the plan
Right.
we have,
Right.
going through it to make sure that you stay on track in order to give you guys back the list of items that need to be looked
But-
at.
Well, and we want that public input, but on a specific item at a specific time.
Correct.
That we've already identified as something that we want to look at. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but we want public input on that and not the whole plan.
Right. So with that said, I do think the joint meeting during a work session for that hour is going to be able to accomplish with all the
That-
planning board members here. I think we can accomplish it during that period. Because again, we're not trying to look at the document
We're not
specific.
looking at the details.
Right. Big picture and goals, and directives, not,
So September work session.
it works fine for me. It works for the planning board.
You gonna be here September?
Yep.
Michael, if we can check.
I'll reach out.
that depends on which week, but
We'll move us forward. Item
Third Thursday
13,
of the
our
month. Oh,
that's,
resolution for sole sourcing
I'll be,
of SCADA and third filter train for water treatment plant improvement project. Mr. Ward.
So just to give you a little bit of an update, on the water treatment plant improvements, we're getting very close to bidding this project out. And this is one of the items that was brought to our attention, and we let Nick review this. It is required by the general statutes on sole sourcing for specific companies that you want to do certain, in this case, some technology and the filter actually, which would be the third filter we have in the system. 2 filters we have are a specific company. We want to stay consistent with that. With the third filter, our SCADA, we use a specific company all across our network, sewer and water. So we want to make sure we stay consistent and use the same company. So to do that, there's specific criteria you have to meet within the general statutes. And I'll let Nick kind of go over that portion of the statute that we have to meet.
Yeah, so like Josh said, there are certain requirements in the statute when you have specific material types and equipment type that you want to lay out, and that's in General Statute 133-3. So what we did is just ensure that what is required to be shown there to be able to use that is in the resolution, and so that's what is before you.
So the request would be for the board to approve the resolution to use the recommended companies for those 2 items.
Well, I'm gonna assume that our lawyer and you's figured it out, and I'm just gonna say, I move we approve this resolution.
I second that.
thank you.
Got a motion by Commissioner Patterson, second by Commissioner Weller. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Similar resolution to apply for grant funding from the North Carolina Division of Water Infrastructure for a water asset inventory and assessment and a wastewater asset and inventory assessment.
These are two things that, Gerard, Brewer, the new town engineer, and I had talked about. We had a water asset, inventory and assessment done in 18, I believe, maybe renewed in 20 for some grants that we're applying for. Obviously, we've accomplished a lot that's on that list. So that needs to be updated. Wastewater, we do not have, an inventory or an assessment on that, which is something that we need. Because I think we've spent a lot of time and effort and money on water. We hadn't as much on wastewater. So I think these are two things that Gerard would like to see moving forward. We have an opportunity to apply for some grant funding that is available right now in the fall cycle. The state revolving fund, I believe it is, through DWI. So the request would be to approve moving forward with that, those two applications. And cost to do that is $22,000. And that's for both.
Maybe that's what I didn't understand, the cost for doing what?
To apply.
To apply?
Yes.
Cost $22,000 to apply for a grant?
Yes. So there's a lot of information that has to be gathered in order to apply for.
So who does this money go to? Our engineer?
Yes.
Okay.
And next question related to that is, what is the potential amount of money for this grant?
I think $220,000.
There's been,
So we're gambling
we're
22,000.
gambling 10%.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And again, this is something that,
But it's still something we probably need to do.
It
well, it's
is.
still, it's basically something that Jordan and I talked about,
It needs to be done regardless of whether we get a grant or not.
at least the water being put on next year's budget.
Yeah.
So
Understand.
if we could get this money, we could go ahead and move forward with it.
Okay.
So do you have
So you need approval of the resolution and then the budget amendment.
Yes, the agreement from Ardura.
Okay.
Let's do the resolution first. Let's get approval on the resolution.
Yeah. Item 14, you mean?
Yeah, item 14.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the resolution to apply for grant funding from DWI for the water asset inventory assessment and wastewater asset inventory and assessment.
second?
Motion by Commissioner Weller, second by Commissioner Patterson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then the budget amendment.
Make a
for the
motion.
same.
Make a motion to approve the budget amendment for the grants we just approved.
Motion by Commissioner Weller,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Grubb, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What is this form certification for recording officer?
Next.
It's between the budget amendment and what we just approved.
We
Yeah.
could,
Oh, sorry.
so,
So
Between,
that is a requirement. The state has like certain things that they need in the resolution. So that's part of the resolution. So
okay,
Gibby will sign that.
okay.
all right.
It's a
Item,
separate forms.
item 16, Town of Highlands Code of Ordinances Amendment, Article 5, Chapter 2, Finance and Purchasing. Nick?
Yes, so as you are aware, we're going to get to the situation with the finance director or finance officer. When we were going through that process with Josh and determining how we were going to handle this interim finance officer, finance director situation, I went through, like I always do, your code to see if it provided for anything related to the finance director, finance officer position. And I found, like I seem to find a lot, some old antiquated provisions in that code. And one of the ones I found was this reference to a clerk treasurer being appointed as the finance officer. I have no idea what that means. I don't know if Josh knows what that means, but That's obviously not what we're doing. And so this is essentially a text amendment to clean up the finance budget officer portion of the code of ordinances in section 2-91 and 2-92 of the code. So we can get into the resolution to appoint Josh as the town finance director next. That's the next agenda item, but this is some cleanup work that needs to be done in order to do that.
Seems straightforward.
Right.
I'll make
Yes.
the motion. How about that?
Oh, yeah, good.
There you go.
Go for it.
I can do that. I'll make the motion to make the amendment,
To adopt the text amendment.
not the text amendment. Yes.
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Grubb, all in favor?
Aye.
That kind of brings up the thing, we've put in the budget for the last few years money to have our lawyer go through our codes and find these things, so you don't have to do it piecemeal. I don't know why we've never gotten to that.
Now that is for the,
Yeah,
so that's for the UDO only, which is we are not able to do that because of down zoning. So that's the UDO. The code, I'm not aware. I mean, I don't know, Josh, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of any money that's been budgeted for going through the code of ordinances.
There's not been any money
So
budgeted.
maybe
That's
we
been
need
for
to do that.
UDO each year,
Right,
but
about it.
again, we haven't been able to go forward with that.
well, I think we need to look into doing that so that Nick doesn't have to,
So we
Can we,
so we don't have to do a
can we
piecemeal
get an amendment
resolution.
to reallocate that money to actually do this?
Nick, do you know that answer?
I don't know exactly what's out. I do that for other jurisdictions. I do code of ordinance reviews, legal reviews. But we'd have to like sit down. I don't know what's been budgeted for UDO and how that would translate and everything like that. And I will say, to do it the right way, this is not like it's like a UDO rewrite. Like we would need to go through, like in this case, we would sit down with the finance officer. We'd say, okay, what of this is really works and doesn't work, and we'd have to check the statutes on it. So it's not just like a quick little legal review.
Right.
So but that's definitely a service we provide. So
It needs to be done. I still think it needs to be done, and since we can't do the UDO because of all the changes in the state law, and we don't know where we're going on that yet. I think we should, don't you think we should?
Yes.
Have
Yeah.
a clean
Yeah.
code?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
this
we
is
should at least
probably
figure out what we need to do.
1970s code.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely left over from years back. Yeah, let Nick and I look at this.
Great.
And look at the budget, see what we've got there, and then we'll come back and let you know at the next meeting.
Okay,
And Josh, I mean, just so it's clear, I mean, if we only have enough money budgeted, stay within our budget and we do 10 or 15% this year, that's further than we were.
Sure. I agree.
Okay.
and I will say, to that point, it is much easier to do that with your code than it is your UDO. UDO, you kind of need to do everything kind of together, and it needs to be all in harmony. Your code's all over the place anyway, and so it just even some work is better.
Okay.
Okay. Item 17, resolution appointing Joshua P. Ward as finance director.
And Nick's on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll I'll talk for a little bit, but then Josh can speak more to the day-to-day of what's happening. But from a legal perspective, we have a situation where Rebecca resigned, and so now we've got this gap where we're trying to look for, and Josh has given you the update on where the town is on hiring a new finance director. But the statute provides that you need to have a finance director at all times, is the words that it uses, and so we need to get one appointed right now. The statutes already contemplate that the town manager will serve as the budget officer, and so it makes sense to have Josh be the finance director, the interim director. Now, we don't use the words interim because there's no such thing as an interim director. It's like an interim mayor. There's no interim mayor, Josh would be the finance director or finance officer, which by the way, statute says those are interchangeable. But he would be that for the time being. And this statute, or I'm sorry, the resolution also makes clear that the work that Josh has been doing as a finance director, since that resignation, since that gap, that we were ratifying that and considering that to be the work of the finance director. The statute lays out all the duties and obligations of the finance director. Josh is well aware of those. He's on top of it, making sure that we don't let anything slip under the cracks. And he also has to have a fidelity bond so the board knows, that there's $1 million there. If something happens as finance director that can be called upon, that is a protection. So, our recommendation is to adopt the resolution appointing him as finance director until we can get that position filled.
I move we adopt the resolution appointing Joshua P. Ward.
I'll second that before he has a chance.
Got a second by Commissioner Waller. Just discussion. Do we have to give him a raise with his new title? Or a decrease in pay? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Ward,
Yeah.
for the extra duties.
No, you're welcome.
Item 18.8, 3R Lane, proposed right-of-way request. Mr. Mathis.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, 8-3R Lane is currently under contract with a closing date set for August 31st, 2026. According to Macon County Land Records, the home was built in 1998 and has used 3R Lane, a private drive, to access the property for the past 28 years. During due diligence, the closing attorneys discovered that 3R Lane has no designated right-of-way. Instead, the private drive was built across town-owned property without a right-of-way or easement. To address the issue, closing attorney Orville Coward has worked with our legal team to establish a variable right-of-way along 3R Lane. So the owners of 8-3R Lane has a legal right to access their property. Stephen Gamble of Pointer Sprawl reviewed the proposed non-warranty easement deed and is okay with the board approving it. And the staff recommendation is to approve the non-warranty easement deed as submitted. I will start with saying I have very little knowledge about this, so Nick may have to answer some of it. And I know with any type of real estate law questions, he does defer to Stephen, but I'll try to answer best I can.
I'm familiar with the house, and there's 2 more houses past this.
Yeah.
So this is not just going to this house. It goes to 2 more.
That's right.
So, I mean, it looks like something just never happened, needs cleaned up, and
That's what we're thinking. One of the attorneys, I swear I don't know if it was Orville or who, had told me that house past it had a right of way. I haven't found anything that says that. If it's something to clean up, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, it may be that we just have to get a surveyor out there to locate it the rest of the way and do a variable right of way for those other properties. If you want to just go ahead and clean that up. If you just want to address this problem.
Well, I think we need to address this, obviously. I don't want to hold up anything for them, but.
Right.
But at the same time, I do think that I would just be looking to Nick or whoever is appropriate to just advise us on what we should do. Or is the weight of that on the other owners, not necessarily, so that's a question for him. But as far as this goes, I have no issue with cleaning this up.
Well, don't they just automatically have one a prescriptive easement or something?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they can get title insurance.
Oh, I see what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's buying it, how they're buying it. So I'm familiar with the house. I remember when it was built.
Mhm.
So.
I will say we started with a 60-foot right of way proposal and worked it down to a variable right of way.
And what does that mean?
That just means it goes with the existing property line and just follows the edge of the road. The 60-foot, Stephen was concerned of it causing problems with another property on down the way of leaching onto them, having a right of way onto a separate piece of property. So the variable right of way just follows the edge of the road right through there.
And it cleans up those 3 houses and there's no property beyond it.
So we'll have a road that we don't have a right of way on to be able to put any.
It'll be
Is that a reason, utilities or anything else? Is there a reason we need a right of way there? that's wider than just the road?
But it's, yeah.
I mean,
You
I'm
could,
not
I mean, there
familiar
is
with
some
the,
room up that left side, but I get what you're saying.
But 30 feet gives you the room to do that, but at the same time, this is a private drive. This is like a shared driveway for 3 people. But it's
Yeah.
on town property.
It was just
so it's
built and
just
there
a
was
right of
never an
way just
easement
because
done.
it's on town property?
Yeah,
Yes.
so
That's the
basically they
easement.
just built the
That's what
driveway
it is.
across us.
Yeah, and
So
I
allowed to go
defer
across
to
the-
attorneys on the language, so.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure we don't trap ourselves at some point in the future where we need some, of course, this is not our road, it's a private road,
Right.
so we wouldn't have a right of way on it anyway.
Yes.
But, Michael, isn't it true though that that the town maintains it is, it's not a private road, right? It is,
No,
it's not a town road, but it's also not a private road that is maintained or owned by the private, a private owner.
As far as I know about 3R Lane, because I'm not real familiar with it, the town does not maintain it. Josh, do you know if the town maintains 3R Lane? Because I don't think we do. It's almost like a driveway, like Commissioner Weller said. that-
Access the cemetery there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you see that little spur off to the right? That's how we get into the low end of the cemetery. So they
So
probably do scrape to there.
Properly maintained to there,
Yeah, but beyond that,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to one of those houses beyond that and it,
Yeah, and I can't.
it has grass in the middle of the road and it's
it's a
two
rut,
gravel
2
runs.
ruts,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
which is fine. I
Which
love
means it's not being
driveways like
scraped snow either, or the grass wouldn't be there. So, well, I make a motion to approve this request.
We have a motion by Commissioner Weller,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Grubb. I have a tough time approving this simply because the Chenoweths have been a fixture of this community for many, many years. And when we approve this, they're going to be able to sell this house and move.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Anything additional? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We don't want to leave. Move we adjourn.
I'll second that. All right.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Good job,
Set some
Jim.
quality
Thank you.
time
I'll be
today,
at
Amy.
community coffee tomorrow if anybody wants to come harass me.
Oh, yeah, the mayor timed it right.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
I would have just postponed community college, but he just told Jim to handle it.
We spent a lot of time together today. I think this is about 6 hours.
So, yeah, I mean, they've already essentially moved to Charleston. And you know why? Well, he has cancer and it's terminal. So they have a child in Charleston and they have a child in Woodstock, Georgia, and she wants to be near one of them. He wants her to be near one of them for when he does pass.